afternoon, depending on where you are. It is May 13th, 2004. I hope everybody out there is having a happy May 13th, 2004, wherever you are, whatever you may be doing. I hope you're having a happy Monday. I hope you're off to a strong start this week. I hope you all have a great week. Y'all make sure to hit that like button as you come through and leave those comments in the comment section. And y'all are already starting with Fury. Y'all are starting off on fire so far. Shout out Andre Rodriguez. Good afternoon, Calix. Salute from Portugal. God bless. God bless you. God bless the great country of Portugal. Never been there, but it's my second favorite country behind America. Unless you're from another country, for somebody else in the chat, then your country will be my second favorite country as well. But God bless Portugal and the great people of Portugal. Shout out to y'all. John Fury needs to be in jail. And I'm gonna show that video footage later. John Fury needs to be in jail according to El Cuatro P. So yeah, I mean John Fury belongs in jail. John Fury's out there getting the fight week off pretty quick. That dude did not, no foreplay, nothing. He just started off the fight week and he's like, we going straight in. We going straight, pause. We're going straight in. And he's hyping this thing up, and John Fury's out there headbutting dudes who look like they're 12 years old. And by the way, I'll show in the video footage later, that dude took that headbutt like a champ, because Fury is a big dude, and that dude took that headbutt and just, he kept going. Fluffy Toasters 89, shout out to you. I want Loma versus Cepeda. Personally, I would love that fight too. I'd love that fight as well. So give me that one. I'm fine with that. And give me that one as well. The good thing about Lomachenko right now is there's still a lot of options on the table at lightweight. So more on that in a minute. Our Lady of Fatima Day here, and happy Our Lady of Fatima Day to you, Andre. Shout out to you. Chicano Prophet, salute to my people. Salute to John Fury is boxing. Salute to Anthony Sanchez and Troy Mack. So hit that like button as you come in. Make sure to leave those comments in the comment section. Shout out to Mr. T, who's out there giving bounties to people, just innocent people out there, just giving bounties to. John headbutted a dude 70 pounds lighter than him, and he only hurt himself. So I'm saying, and I actually think you're giving him too much credit. I think that dude was way less than 70 pounds lighter than John Fury. I think John Fury had a good 125 pounds on him, and that dude took that headbutt like a champ. He took it like a champ. John Fury took the smallest guy possible to headbutt. Yep. Still got cut like a pig and retreat behind his 30 soldiers line by a good 25 meters. And you always see dudes do that thing, right? Like they'll pick the smallest guy, and then when people get in the middle is when they start to get outrageous. We see this in press conferences, face-offs, right? It's always when somebody gets in the middle, then they start shouting, right? And then it gets more boisterous. And we see this with basketball all the time. I have a basketball background. I coach basketball, and it's always when somebody gets in the middle. And basketball is like one shove, and then everybody gets in the middle, and oh my God, oh my God. It's like, dude, they're basketball players. They don't want to fight. It is what it is. I wish it wasn't that way. I'm a basketball player. But that's the way it is. Lies, they deserve those bounties. So, shout out Mr. T. Lomachenko. Let's start off on Lomachenko. Pause. Heck of a performance. And I always eat crow here. I was the one person on the round table last week saying, I think this is a decision fight. I think Lomachenko is going to win this wide on the decision, 11-1, 10-2, something like that. My thinking going in was Lomachenko 33% KO percentage at lightweight at that point. Lomachenko has enough power to hurt guys and keep them honest at lightweight, but does this thing where he sort of coasts, doesn't go into fifth gear, and wins a decision. And on top of that, Kambosos is a guy who's tough. He's rugged. He's got a motor, so he's going to stick in there. And their rebuttal to that was it's going to be more of a stoppage type thing. It's going to be a white towel being thrown in. And they were right. and it was 11th round stoppage. All those guys on the round table were picking late stoppage, and I wish I would have went with them and did the decision. I mean, the stoppage 7 through 12, but instead I did the decision, and I ended up losing my bet. Nonetheless, Lomachenko wins the fight. So where are we with Lomachenko at this point? Where are we? Well, where we are is we still have a guy who's 6-7 years into his lightweight run is still number 1 or number 2 in the lightweight rankings. And he's been there, and that's been consistent, right? Number 1 or number 2 in the lightweight rankings. I think most people have him number 1 at lightweight right now, top lightweight. Some people have him 2. It is what it is, but he's still there. Kambosos is Kambosos. More on that in a minute. But let me address the narratives. Let's go there. And before I do, shout out Nando Yamas. Appreciate you. Appreciate you swinging through as always. HLD, appreciate you swinging through as always. Peace to you. Hope your family's doing well. Hope everybody's families are doing well on this Monday afternoon. Loma back on the pound for pound list. We'll see. We'll see. We'll see. Should I call an emergency pound for pound list meeting this morning? Should I do it? Let me know in the chat. Should I hold an emergency meeting? We have a panel of one, an esteemed panel of one here. The pound for pound panel here is a panel of one, and the Hall of Fame panel is a panel of one. I'm not a member of BWA. Y'all know BWA, right? BWAA. I'm not a member of BWA. I'll never be a member of BWA, unfortunately, but I have my own Hall of Fame up. And, you know, I just draw pictures of the favorite fighters, and I'll put, if I think they're in the Hall of Fame, my Hall of Fame, I'll just put their picture on the wall, and then that's their legacy right there on the Calix Hall of Fame panel of one wall, because I'm not in BWA. And since I'm not in BWA, I don't have an official vote. My vote doesn't count. But what I'm saying is, should I do it, Chicano? Should I do it? Chicano daring me to do it. He's daring me. He's daring me. Chicano's daring me. He's daring me to do it. That was his first reaction on Twitter, is Calix can't wait to update that pound for pound. He's daring me. He's daring me to do it. HLD saying no. Don't do it. Don't call the meeting. So I think I'm going to use some discipline here, and I'm going to wait until Sunday to hold this emergency meeting, because Usyk is fighting. Jai Opataya is fighting. They're both fighting on Saturday out in the beautiful Arabia of Saudi out there. Our Excellency Turkey Al-Sheikh is putting on a great card. So we'll see what those guys do, and we'll see what we'll compare and contrast to other guys in between 11 and 15. Lomachenko somewhere in there, 11 to 15. I know y'all trying to get him outside of that 15. Y'all trying to get him outside the top 20. I know Chicano doesn't want him up there. Although Chicano wants me to put him on the list so he can see the rebuttal videos out there and send them to me. But yeah, man, I'm like, I was itching. I was itching Sunday morning. I was like, I need to call the emergency meeting. I need to call this emergency pound for pound meeting, but I'm not going to do it. I'm going to use some discipline. We're not going to put them on just yet. Not quite yet. We need to see a little more. You see a little more. And by the way, if you're in YouTube watching this, hit that like button. For the 51 over in X watching this, shout out to y'all. Appreciate y'all for coming through. So he wins by stoppage. So he clearly has stoppage power. But let's address the narratives first. One of the narratives coming out of Lomachenko technically, and this is the thing with Lomachenko, right? There's a lot of perception out there. He, for whatever reason, very versatile. I mean, very volatile narrative surrounding Lomachenko. I wonder why that is. But for a decade, it's been that way. I think you could attribute that to many things. Some more than others specifically. But one thing I think every unbiased person will agree on with Lomachenko is he's technically sound. He's technically a pound for pound level fighter still to this day. Still at 36 years old. Still one of the best technical fighters in the sport. Very good or great technical, special technical fighter. What I mean by that is the footwork is there, the upper body movement is there, the defense is there. He's able to counter off of shots, use combinations off of counters. He's able to pour it on offensively, pivot, all this stuff, right? Technical fighter. Hold on one second. Mr. Boxing Today 2 versus Cali X 2.0 in a one-on-one basketball game, and he would win. I can tell you that right now. He would have always won that, by the way, but I think that has gotten wider over the years because my joints ain't the best. But D-Style, let me say this while I got D-Style in the chat. And let me say this while that super chat is up. And by the way, D-Style, I appreciate the $5 super chat. But speaking of pound for pound, I wake up Saturday morning. The first thing I wake up to, and usually I, meditate for about 5-10 minutes, stretch it out, stretch, and then I wipe the coal out my eyes. And I'm wiping the coal out my eyes, and I go onto my personal Instagram, and I see D-Style has sent me a personal message, personal post. And the post is top 10 pound for pound list. D-Style Boxing, top 10 pound for pound list. And I'm reading this, right? I'll say 1, 2, 3. All right, good list so far. Agree with this list. Good list. Usyk's not on there, but I know his criteria. He doesn't put heavyweights on there. Good for him. I see the list. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That's 5. So I get to 10. And the coal's still in my eyes. I'm wiping it out. So I see 10, and I'm like, no, that's not it. I still have too much coal in my eye. No, it's just, we got to wipe it out, clear it out a little more. And then I look at 10 again, and it's still there. So it's like, nope, a little more. And it's still there. And it says tank. And I say, no, this can't be. Maybe he just got this wrong. So I go to Twitter, and I purposely, first thing I do is type in D-Style Boxing. Let's see if he put the pound for pound list on there, and maybe that was a mistake over on Instagram. And I go 1, 2, 3, 9, get to 10 again. Maybe there's still too much coal in the eyes. Let me get it. 10, tank. No. And I see what D-Style's doing. I think I understand. It's a conspiracy theory, but I think it's a solid theory. I think what D-Style Boxing is doing, is he wants to get a guy on a top 10 pound for pound list that has a questionable decision against Usyk Cruz. Therefore, he can say Usyk Cruz got robbed against a top 10 pound for pound guy. So therefore, I can angle in for later this year to try to get Usyk Cruz, my favorite fighter, into my top 10 pound for pound list. I see what he's doing. You cannot have Tank on your top 10 pound for pound list, D-Style. And we have to have this discussion on HCP. I understand it's subjective, but it has to be reasonable at the same time. So just a little beef I have with D-Style Boxing. Just a little beef. We'll hash it out. We'll talk about it. We'll see what happens. But more on Loma. more on Loma. So one of the narratives, it's been after the past couple of fights, and is after this fight, was I see people with the body punching. And all of a sudden Lomachenko is weak to the body. I'm like, where is this coming from? So Lomachenko's weak to the body all of a sudden. So if you look at the CompuBox stats, which are flawed, but they give you a general picture of what happened. So Kambosos lands 40 punches total in the fight. 40 punches. So for those of you who went to American public schools, that's a little over 3 per round on average. So he lands 40 total. 25 of them were to the body. So a high percentage of them were body punches. The total punches landed more than not were body punches. And you take that and you couple it with the narrative after the Haney fight, which I think was weak. And I think when we have these discussions about who won Lomachenko versus Haney, I just noticed that over time, the people who have argued Haney won that fight, I think their arguments just, I don't think they're very strong. But nonetheless, smart people are making those arguments, so That's fine. But the problem that I have is the narrative after that fight was Haney did great to the body. And yay, Haney did great to the body. But what was the narrative going into that fight? It was Lomachenko straight left versus Haney's jab. And whoever won that out was going to win that fight. And it was queen piece versus queen piece. And how do I know this? That was the narrative because that's how the fight was built up, as a chess match. So Lomachenko throughout that fight banged Haney over the head literally with his queen piece. And at the same time took Haney's queen piece away. And the narrative after that fight was Haney made great adjustments late in that fight, which I agree with. I think he did make some good late adjustments, and he showed that he's a durable fighter. But he was sped up like by Lomachenko. It was fought at Lomachenko's speed, and Lomachenko was landing his queen piece and took Haney's away. But one of the adjustments he made was he's landing body shots. But why is he landing body shots, and are they effective is my question. And I'm going somewhere with this. But what you saw with the body punching in the Haney fight was it didn't slow Lomachenko down one bit. It didn't. It didn't slow him down. His output went up throughout the fight. Didn't slow him down. Lomachenko continued to come forward. And I would argue, and myself, Surgical Boxing, and we had this conversation again after the Kambosos fight. We had it after the Haney fight. We had it again after the Kambosos fight. We would argue that Lomachenko, everybody agrees, as I started off, that he's a great technical fighter. We got to at least give him that. Even for his hardcore critics, haters, you got to at least give him that he's a technical fighter. He's able to make slight adjustments. You got to at least give him that. So I fail to understand why people want you to believe that Lomachenko is not able to make the slight adjustment of bringing his power hand down to his body. I mean, I think that's a silly argument to make. People are trying to make the argument that all of a sudden Lomachenko is soft to the body and gives up way too many body shots. So therefore, if he fights Tank or if he fights a big puncher at 135, they're going to knock him out to the body because we all know now Lomachenko's soft to the body. Lomachenko, even though he's been in 19, 20 title fights, whatever it's been at this point, and has never been hurt and never been knocked out. And never been knocked down by a body punch, to my knowledge, is all of a sudden soft to the body 11 years in, 12 years in. It's an interesting narrative to try to get people to take hold of. What I would argue, what Surgical Boxing would argue, is he's conceding those punches. So why would he do that? Why would he concede those punches? And this is just Calix being a Loma nut hugger. No. He's capable of making the slight adjustment of bringing that power hand down. I think he's capable because I've seen him do it. Throwing, bring it back down. Dropping the hands, but he doesn't do it. Why? He's conceding the body shot because he wants that power hand to go lower so he can land what? The straight left. I think it's pretty obvious to see at this point. And the same thing with Kambosos. He's going to concede Kambosos body punching. He's not going to allow him to land upstairs. Kambosos lands one punch per round average upstairs throughout the whole fight. Not going to allow that. Going to stay in the shell when he has to stay in the shell. If he wants you to, if you want to go to the body, that's fine. I'll concede that shot. And when you go to the body, I'll throw my straight left upstairs. If you go back and watch the Haney fight and you go back and watch the Kambosos fight, I've seen the Haney fight like 6-7 times because I'm just trying to see what people say they saw in that fight. And all of a sudden people are giving extra credit to body punching when in the past they just haven't given much credit to body punching at all. I'm trying to see what they saw. And almost every time Haney goes to the body, almost every time Kambosos goes to the body, it triggers Lomachenko to throw the straight left. And almost every time he lands it. I don't buy this narrative. Not at all. I think it's a weak one. And once again, I think people will show you what they really think of fighters by their expectations of those fighters. I've seen fighters that you claim to give more credit to than Lomachenko. I say claim to because, once again, it's expectations. Your expectations aren't as high of the fighters that you rate high. as they are as these fighters you're trying to say have weaknesses. So Lomachenko, I've seen other fighters get hit with way more body punching that are way more effective against those fighters, and the narrative isn't that these guys are weak to the body. But Lomachenko, all of a sudden, this narrative is starting to take hold. I can always see him from a mile away that he's weak to the body all of a sudden. It's interesting. I don't see it, though. I don't buy it. You're going to have to give me more. You're going to have to give me footage. You're going to have to give me something because I'm not buying it. I don't see it. Almost every time those two fighters in particular went to the body and landed, Lomachenko landed a more effective shot upstairs to those fighters. He did. He did. You could pretend that he didn't, but he did. He did. We can criticize Lomachenko of things, but you have to criticize him of the things that are relevant, that are actually there. You can criticize him for being an arrogant fighter, taking rounds off, coasting at times, and it catches up to him later on in big fights. You can criticize him for, yes, dude, you've been for 6 years, top of this weight class, but anytime there's been 1 versus 2, you haven't definitively won that fight. Teofimo, you lost. We all know he lost that fight. Don't want to hear about the injuries or anything like that. But the Haney fight, although many of us think he won that fight, 8 out of 10 of us, I would say, the reality is he lost the fight. The reality is he didn't put that fight to bed. And at certain points, you feel like he could have. He could have. So if you want to knock Lomachenko on certain things, they have to be real. And there are real things to do. I could sit here and tell you, I think this guy's lightweight run is great. 6 years, 10 fights, 8-2, all title fights. Now 40% KO percentage, so he stopped some guys as well. He's fought top competition throughout. I think that's a great run. But when you push back with, yeah, but he hasn't won the big one. Even though I can point to you big fights that he's won, the perception is he hasn't won that fight. And at lightweight, it is a reality that 1 versus 2, a few times now, he hasn't put that fight away. So if you want to knock him for something, that would be it. That would be the one. But when you start to throw out technical flaws of one of the best most technically sound pound for pound fighters, that's where I start to scratch my head. It's like, why are they going to that? Why are they going to that? And when you start to be overcritical of a fighter who's clearly achieved things and still achieving things, that's when I wonder if you're just a good old-fashioned hater. And we talk about expectations too, right? Your expectations of Lomachenko and a lot of foreign fighters are still high. Our expectations of American fighters are low. They're at an all-time low. And that's why these guys are underachieving. They're not going to tell you that. American boxing media, American boxing fans are not going to tell you that, and they're not going to be real about that. But these fighters are underachieving. How do I know that? It's showing up in the data. 68 major belts. How many of them do we own? It's now 15. Mao was just stripped. We're down to 15. And I was wrong because Tim Tszyu, if he's not cut, I was arguing that America and Japan would be tied. No, Japan would be beating America right now. And I think that's the first time ever we would have America with the second most amount of belts, where we didn't own the most belts. There's clear, I would argue it's not slippage. We've fallen off the cliff in America as far as talent. As far as talent, it's still the talent's still out there. It's not being realized. And one of the reasons not being realized is our expectations of these fighters are at an all-time low. You see it on Twitter. You'll see Shakur come out, gnash his teeth. Oh, woe is me. Oh, my God. Oh, my God. You'll see Teofimo do the same thing. Ryan do the same thing. We'll say, yeah, but, mental health is going around. Yeah, well, it's hit and don't get hit, and he's not getting hit. We make all kind of excuses for American fighters that we don't make for foreign fighters. And foreign fighters are living up to our expectations of them, even though we're not being realistic about that. And our American fighters are living down to our expectations of them. 15 belts out of 68 should be, fellas, it should be unacceptable. It should be unacceptable. And dudes, once again, they'll throw all kind of excuses. Yeah, well, this fighter, and then this fighter is going to get a title shot, then the number's going to go. But where is it now? Where is it now? It's not good. The world is catching up. I understand the world is catching up. But we should still be clearly number one, and we're not. Your expectations should be higher than they are. And we'll see this. Tank is the face of this. Tank is the poster board of this, of that I just said. Tank is the poster board of the American market, making excuses for fighters, making excuse after excuse after excuse as to why fighters aren't fighting the fights, why fighters aren't living up to expectations, why fighters are losing rounds that they shouldn't lose even if they win the fight, why certain fighters should not be on the pound for pound list. Because once again, we have to have gatekeepers in this sport. I would rather you have 9 and 10 vacant before you start to put fighters on that list that should not be on that list just because they don't have the competition to be on that list. They don't have the level of competition to be on that list. So 135 is a good litmus test with this. Because dudes will levy things at Lomachenko that these other fighters are guilty of. The amount of fights. They'll say, well, how is Lomachenko in a Hall of Fame? 21 fights in 11 years, whatever it may be. Well, look at his peers. Lomachenko, straight out the gate, fights Salido. And he fights Salido for the WBO title. Right? So what happens? He ends up losing the fight, but why does he get another shot at the WBO title 3 months later? And if you ask these dudes, if you ask the American boxing fans, what will they tell you? They'll throw out the P word. I don't mean the 5-letter P word, the P word. Privilege. Lomachenko was privileged to fight Salido in his second fight because they're trying to gift him a decision against a tough, rugged fighter in his second fight, right? Whatever they claim. But he's privileged to get that opportunity. Okay. He loses the fight. Loses close decision. Some people say it's debatable, but whatever. But he gets another shot 3 months later against Gary Russell Jr. for the same belt. So they won't throw out why Lomachenko gets a shot at the same belt next. Why does Lomachenko get a shot at the same belt next? Why does that happen? Just like, why does Devin Haney still have the belt after he just lost? It's because Ryan Garcia blew off the weight. Orlando Salido blew off the weight. So Lomachenko becomes first in line to have a shot at the same title, the vacant title. Because Salido weighs more than 2 pounds over the limit. That's why. And once again, Gary Russell Jr., undefeated Gary Russell Jr., who was unbeatable at 126. I remember these same dudes making these arguments. And then I'll have dummies like that dude Checkmate Boxing. I had this dude. I was like, let him on. Let him on. For 20 minutes. I just gave him the floor. Gave him the floor. And his argument was everybody Lomachenko fought is overrated. Everybody Tank fought is underrated. Once again, expectations. I don't believe you. I had to block the dude because the next day he's calling me racist when I gave him the floor on my channel. It was respectful. But still, you can't do anything to these dudes. You can't do anything for these dudes. They'll still believe whatever they want to believe about you. But 3 months later, fellas, let me ask you a question. Chat, have at it. What other fighter in the sport, 3 months after losing a fight like Salido, which was a tough fight for him, tough, rugged fight, would fight a Gary Russell Jr. 3 months later? What other fighter? Name one. Chat, go at it. Go at it. What other fighter has done that? What other fighter has lost to a guy on Salido's level, right? Tough guy, loses a close fight, and then bounces back 3 months later and fights a Gary Russell Jr. type of fighter. And they'll call that privilege. He's privileged to have that. You're privileged for your second pro fight to fight Salido, and then in your third fight, after a loss, to fight Gary Russell Jr., who was unbeatable at the time. I remember these arguments. Gary Russell Jr. was Willie Pep. In fact, he would have beat Willie Pep 120 to 108. Lomachenko styles on him. But the narrative now is Gary Russell Jr. was overrated when it comes to Lomachenko. When it comes to other things, he's not. He's still great. But when it comes to Lomachenko, when you attach his name to Lomachenko, he's overrated. Gary Russell Jr. is then overrated. Yeah, we knew Lomachenko was going to win that fight. Yeah. That's not a great win, right? It's not a great win. Anybody else be a great? No, not a great win. Not a great win. I mean, name one. Who else has done that in the past 15, 20 years? Who else has lost to a guy the level of Salido and then bounced back 3 months later and fought the number one guy in the weight class and styled on him and won the title? But it's privilege. No, it's not privilege. It's he took a shot in his second fight, lost the fight, and he got another shot at the title. And dudes will say it's because of privilege. No, it's not. It's because the dude blew off the weight, so he gets a shot at the vacant shot next. Again, this is easy. It's simple. But they can't do it. And you're not going to be able to name anybody. You're not going to do it. You're not going to do it. I understand. I get it. I get it, man. I understand why certain dudes, not certain dudes, but I understand why there would be backlash on certain dudes who have overhyped Lomachenko. I get that because that's out there. Joe Rogan calling this guy the greatest fighter that ever lived. That's ridiculous. Joe Tessitore saying when he's losing rounds early on in fights, saying he's downloading. That's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. I get that. Like, I understand why people, they hear that stuff and they're like, oh, come on, get like, what is this? But stop allowing their overhyping that fighter get in the way of what you really think of fighters. If you can't move, get your lips to move far enough to say this guy's a great fighter, like, you got to give him that. Come on. But I'm still hearing hype job. I'm still hearing weak to the body. I'm still hearing these things come up, and I'm like, especially when we're comparing him and contrasting him to his peers of today. Virgil Ortiz Jr. gives him his credit. Breadman Boxing gives him his credit. All-time great 130, great 120, 160, 130. Really good run at 135. Great technically sound fighter, all-time great. All that stuff, right? And if you don't want to put him all-time great, that's fair. That's fair. But overhyped, when you say overhyped, you're reacting to the Joe Rogans and Joe Tessitores of the world. That's what you're doing. And I'm saying don't allow that to happen. But the sad thing is, once again, foreign fighter, we're expecting you to come over here and beat all of our fighters soundly and not get hit at all. You can't get hit to the body, or you're weak to the body, or you're a bum. And American fighters get all kind of excuses. So you take Tank, right? Tank's still getting mythical victories. Yesterday, I'll just say this. I wake up and I'm going to troll a little bit. I'll admit that. And I'll say Lomachenko beats Tank. And that's not even trolling, because I still believe that. I believe it. Look, fellas, let me show you something. Show you something right now. Look at this. And dudes will act like this never happened. Amnesia. They'll pretend like this never happened. I'm old enough to remember when Tank used to get out of line publicly, and him and Floyd used to have their public beefs, and Floyd would threaten publicly to feed him to Lomachenko. I remember this. It was circa 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019. I remember this stuff. Gervonta Davis in no hurry to fight Lomachenko, says Mayweather, 2016, Boxing News. ESPN, Floyd Mayweather, Vasyl Lomachenko will have to wait for Gervonta Davis, 2017. Because, of course, Tank is the prize, even back in 2017. Fresh face, Gervonta Davis, he's the prize. He's the A-side. BadLeftHook.com, Mayweather says no rush to have Gervonta Davis face Vasily Lomachenko, 2018. ESPN Ringside, 2019. Gervonta isn't rushing into a fight with Vasily Lomachenko in 2020. So he's not rushing. He's not rushing. We're going to do this on our own time, right? For 7 years. And dudes think I make this stuff up. They think I make this stuff up when I say more than half a decade this dude's been ducking Lomachenko openly, throughout multiple weight classes now. Throughout multiple weight classes for 7 years, they've been openly avoiding Lomachenko. But if I go on Twitter, and I do this on purpose, just to experiment, if I go on Twitter and say Lomachenko beats Tank Davis, guess what happens? Tank wins the mythical matchup. He wins the mythical matchup. And this isn't just like short bus dudes, because the short bus dudes are hitting me up, and I knew that was going to happen. And you have the short bus dudes say Tank has God power. Did you see Loma get hit to the body a record-breaking 25 times against Kambosos? Even though Lomachenko's landing a straight left after every single one of them. And dudes say, we know Lomachenko's weak to the body. He's not capable of dropping that power hand after he throws a left hand. So just imagine. A dude told me yesterday that Tank has God power. So Tank having God power would, of course, lay Lomachenko down. There's just no way. Lomachenko would be able to hold up against God power. It's just not, that's not possible, right? So Tank would knock Lomachenko's head into the 27th round if he doesn't destroy and mutilate his body beforehand. That's the short bus dudes. But then you'll have some of these dudes, man, like they're not bad dudes, but they're not waking up. PBC has done this thing, and you see it once again show up in the data. When PBC fighters get out of this PBC versus PBC matchup type thing, once they get out of their bubble, what happens? They lose. And dudes aren't putting two and two together. They're not connecting the dots as to why that is. Why is that happening? It's almost as if this trend is occurring because these dudes are looking inside this bubble better than they actually are. And for the life of me, I can't figure it out. I can't figure out if Tank is just being poorly managed. I think that's part of it. I think they've done a terrible job of managing a guy who could be a star. Even with multiple losses, could be a star. He's a knockout artist. Even if this dude is hopping on booster seats and hitting pregnant women without a license and being unrepentant about it, he could still be a star. We have seriously flawed. I mean, look at Ryan Garcia. We have seriously flawed stars. Every generation. Mike Tyson. I mean, look at, I mean, for the love of God. We have seriously flawed stars. Tank could be one if they unleashed him. Are they that dumb, or is there something we're not seeing that they're hiding from us? I don't know. But the data shows that when these PBC fighters step outside of that bubble, they lose. We start to see the real fighter. Part of the Tank Davis theorem is he wins all the mythical matchups. And I'm not joking about that. People think I'm joking when like Willie Pep. Yeah, of course, he destroys him. Willie Pep, he was white, right? And then he fought in like the 20s, and guys in that era, they all fought like Alfredo Angulo. They were all slow. So Tank would just, of course, Tank would knock Willie Pep into the stratosphere. Of course. Of course. Tank versus Duran. Well, you know, be a good matchup, but Tank will win. And I'm looking at this. And the nerve of these dudes to even do Tank Davis versus Roberto Duran mythical matchup. I'm looking at this. I'm like, what the hell is going on? That already. And then I'll click on the poll. And Tank's winning. He's winning the poll. And I'll pick up a soft object and I'll throw it at the wall. Because I'm like, this can't be. This cannot be. This cannot be. But this is where we're at. Our expectations of American fighters are so historically low. So historically low. So much so that this guy can get on top 10 pound for pound list. And on top of that, he can win all the mythical matchups without anybody questioning, well, why hasn't he been in any? Inoue wins a big fight at 122 every single time it happens. And once again, there's another thing. I thought I was in the twilight zone when it started to happen. I was like, no, that's just going to be one guy. That's going to be one guy doing it. It's not going to hold up. There's just going to be one guy doing it. One guy. And then it's another guy. And then it's another guy. And then I'll look at the clicks. It's got like 500,000 clicks. I'm like, what is going on? Inoue does something at 122, and they expect him to go up 3 weight classes to fight Tank Davis. All in the same time that they're not even asking Tank Davis to fight a top 3 guy in the weight class. And once again, I'm just sitting there like I have to be in the twilight zone. There's no way. There's no way. How about, like, I don't know, how about this guy fight a top guy at 135 before we ask a fighter at 122 to move up to fight him? The same dude's asking Inoue to move up 3 weight classes. Well, maybe, you know, maybe it's just 13 pounds. It's just 13 pounds. Well, how about this? How about we meet you halfway and he just moves up to 130 and we do it a catch weight? No, how about no? How about this is what we do? How about Inoue, you leave him alone and he fights top guys at 122 like he's doing? He's about to fight the top 5 guys, all 5 of them. Line them up at 122. I'm fine with that. Leave that dude alone. Leave him alone. And how about we do this? How about you fight a top guy at 135? How about you fight Lomachenko? Well, you know, this, you know, the top rank. All right, well, how about this? Shakur Stevens is about to be a free agent. How about you fight him? Well, you know, he's boring. Whatever. It's always something. Always. So we just let it go and move on. And then the dude is able to carry on his little thing to where he's acting like a novelty fighter, but being in top 10 pound for pound list and winning every mythical matchup. So I watched this go on. And then these same dudes who are asking Inoue to come up multiple weight classes, when you ask them about Haney, even coming off of a loss, because of course Tank, after a loss, is going to pull up. He's going to pull up on Devin Haney outside of his car, right? He'll pull up on him. And that gives him another mythical victory, by the way, because we all saw the body language. So Tank would destroy Haney as well. Unless you bring out no rehydration clause. Then it's, no, Haney's big. He's big. When Haney was at 135, I remember the narratives, he was feather-fisted, right? He's feather-fisted now. So all of a sudden, when they attach Tank's name to Haney, it becomes Haney's too big. It's like, oh, here we go again. Here we go again. Here we go again. So now we need the same guy who they were asking another fighter to come up 3 weight classes to fight. When it comes to him, we can't even ask him to go back up to a weight class he's already fought at and fight with no rehydration clause, because this guy rehydrates to 160, and that's way too big. It's way too big. He can outweigh Inoue by 20, 25 pounds, but Haney can't outweigh Tank by 20 pounds. Can't happen. We can't allow all that to happen. Why? Why can't we have the same expectations of Tank that you're expecting of Inoue. I don't understand. I don't understand. I don't believe you anymore. I don't believe you, dudes. I don't believe you. I don't think you have the trust in these fighters that you say you do. And I think it's the reason why we only have 15 belts now. It's the reason why, no matter what happens this weekend, when I drop my pound for pound list on Sunday, Monday, next week, there's only going to be 2 American fighters on there. And that's Bud and that's Bam. That's it. It's the only ones. I'm not appeasing to these dudes. I'm not doing it. We're not going to appease. American fighters are letting us down. American boxing fans are, I would argue, probably pound for pound, the lowest IQ boxing fans in the world. I think we're historically dumb here now. And I'm not going to appease to that audience. Like, y'all need to step up. You need to step up your game. Y'all looking dumb out here. We're looking terrible out here. What are y'all doing? But dudes will do this thing too when they say Lomachenko only has 21 fights in 10 years. Okay. So it's like, okay. So I can point to, once again, like I did earlier, he fought Salido in the second fight. He fights Gary Russell Jr. 3 months later. So he hopped right in it. He hopped right in it. He said, look, fellas, I had 397 amateur fights. I went through that process. Plus I had the World Series of Boxing, which, so you can argue he has more professional fights than he actually does, by the way. So I'm going to skip that process. And we're going straight to title fights, and we're going straight to being a twice per year fighter. So fair enough. You got it, man. Go for it. Go for it. That's good. That's good. But what happens when we apply it to other fighters? Frank Martin is 7 years in. 7 years in. How many fights does he have? 20. 20. 20 in 7 years. So on average, he has a little bit more per year than Lomachenko. What is it, like 2 to 2.5? That's the difference. A half a fight a year, a little more. Shakur has 21 fights in 7 years. So throughout his career, he's been a 3 fight per year fighter. 3 fights per year. The issue with that is Shakur Stevenson and Frank Martin both had the process to where they're fighting the tomato cans. They both had the process where they come in the door and they fight the Uber drivers. Lomachenko cut that process out. And still, the difference in the amount of fights between these fighters is almost negligible. But once again, they'll levy this claim on Lomachenko that he's not active enough. You can't be 21 fights in and be considered a Hall of Famer. When it comes to Shakur Stevenson and Frank Martin, they're not considered these type of fighters that don't have enough fights. At least Lomachenko went straight to it. Title fight, second fight, title fights after that, every fight. These dudes have been taking their time, their good old time. Shakur Stevenson got to it quicker. I got to give him that. I have things to levy against Shakur Stevenson, but they're mostly due to entertainment or lack thereof. But to me, the competition level has been good, other than, especially when you consider that certain guys haven't stepped up to the plate to fight him. But you look at this image here, Lomachenko fights Teofimo. Teofimo fought Kambosos. Kambosos fought Haney. Haney fought Lomachenko. Lomachenko fought Kambosos. Gervonta only fights them on his terms, and they have to be damaged or past their prime before, or not a threat at all. And you got to build his opposition up to be what they aren't. Just like that guy I mentioned earlier tried to do on my channel. When it comes to Gary Russell Jr., when you attach his name to Lomachenko, he's overrated. All these guys, Comey, Nakatani, Luke Campbell, all overrated. Overrated down the line. When it comes to Tank, Rolly Romero's dangerous. One punch KO percentage. One punch KO power. Isaac Cruz, he's 4'11", but he has no neck. So you got to take that into account. And he's a real life pit bull. So he's dangerous, right? You have to build these guys up to something they're not. So when we play this game at lightweight, what does it show us? It shows us that when it comes to Frank Martin arguably gets a gift. It's a close fight against Artem Hurtado in his last fight, right? And that's a good win for Frank Martin, right? According to his fans, which is weird because Artem Hurtado is a German fighter with only 13 fights. So it's weird that would be considered a great win because that's not normally the trend. But certain fighters apply differently to other fighters. So when it comes to Shakur Stevenson, and it's announced his next fight in July 6th, and it's against Artem Hurtado, then guess what? Then he's a bum. Then he's a German fighter with 13 fights. And you can't fight German fighters with 13 fights. Okay, well, Frank Martin just did that, and that landed him the Tank Davis fight. Yeah, but Frank Martin's slick. He's a slick American fighter, and he's very dangerous for Tank. It's dangerous. It's a dangerous fight. Why is that dangerous? I don't get it. Why is it dangerous? 20 fights, 7 years, and his biggest win is Michelle Rivera. It's his biggest win. His second biggest win is Artem Hurtado, who is about to fight Shakur Stevenson. You say he's a bum over there. And they'll say something to the effect of, yeah, well, your guy's Lomachenko, and Lomachenko just fought Kambosos, who's a bum. Okay, wait a second. Question. Wait 1 second. Wait 1 second. Who has the bigger win at lightweight? Who has arguably one of the top couple wins at lightweight in the past 5 years? Who is it? It's George Kambosos, if you ask Ryan Garcia, who did nothing at lightweight. Ryan Garcia did absolutely nothing at lightweight. And he's calling Kambosos Kambozo. Kambosos has one of the biggest wins at lightweight in the past 5 years against Teofimo Lopez. And Frank Martin's big win is Michelle Rivera. Yet, if you ask these dudes, Frank Martin is a tougher fight than George Kambosos. George Kambosos is a bum, and Frank Martin is slick and dangerous, which is weird because, once again, Frank Martin hasn't done anything at lightweight. He arguably gets a gift in a close fight against Artem Hurtado, who is from Germany with only 13 fights. And that's his second biggest win. And his biggest win is Michelle Rivera. And he's dangerous and he's slick. Frank Martin is dangerous. You don't understand. Like, he's dangerous, but one thing we know is he's slick. He's very slick. Slick fighter. And that makes him dangerous. Even though he hasn't done anything at lightweight, he's dangerous and he's very slick. And Kambosos is a bum. A bum. Who has achieved more at lightweight? Is it Kambosos or Frank Martin? Chat, have at it. Who has achieved more at lightweight? Who has been in the tougher fights? Who has been more challenged? And at least came out of that with one big win. Arguably the biggest win, top 3 or 4 biggest wins at the weight class in the past decade. Who is it? It's Kambosos. But once again, our expectations. It's our expectations. Our expectations of different fighters. And I want you to pay close attention to what their expectations of these fighters are. Because they're clearly different, and they're very different. Their expectations are so low of a Tank Davis. Both in and out the ring. Both in and out. The dude can hop on a booster seat without a license, has a suspended license and multiple. I don't even think he had a license. And he hops in a car and hits 4 people, looks at a pregnant woman, runs off, unrepentant. And dudes will get mad that this dude was given house arrest because it's not in the right house. He should be able to live in his $3 million mansion. You don't understand. It's not fair that you got to put him in this little 2,000 square foot house instead of the $3 million mansion. It's not fair. This judge is obviously out to get him. And I'm sitting here once again, and that's the microcosm of this dude inside the ring. You shouldn't be asking him to fight these top fights because there's a reason he's not. These dudes are beneath him. They're beneath him, and we're going to wait till the right time. It's not the right time. Don't you see? 2016, we are not in a hurry to do it. There's plenty of time. Plenty of time. 2017, a year later, you're going to have to wait. So it goes from we're not in a hurry. You're going to have to wait. Stop asking. Stop asking. 2018. Once again, we are not in a rush. Stop asking for it. Stop. You are boxing fans. This is what I was told. Once again, it's a dude I respect, but it's what I was told on the PremierBoxingChampions.com website from an opinion article pinned by a trainer a couple months ago. Once again, another thing that aggravated me. You need to understand you're part of this process. You're a boxing fan. And this happened after the Canelo stuff, the Canelo, the PBC, all this stuff. You need to understand you're a boxing fan. You need to sit back and wait and trust the process. You need to trust that the business people understand what they're doing on the business side, and you're just a fan, and you just hold up and wait, and you pay for the fight when it happens. And how about no? How about I don't do that? You want to know why I'm not going to do that? Because in 2016, I was told we're not in a hurry to fight Lomachenko. A year later, I'm still asking, and dudes will act like this never happened. 8 years. 8 years. It didn't happen. 2017, dumb me. Dumb old me over here. Dumb boxing fan who doesn't understand the business side of boxing. Don't understand it. I'm asking again, and they say, you're going to have to wait. Why do I have to wait? Because you just do. We know what we're doing back here. We're doing some advanced trigonometry back here. And this whole process, man, is very delicate. It's a very delicate process. It's a very delicate process. You just don't understand it as a boxing fan. So go back in your little boxing fan corner and take what I give you. 2018, I don't accept that, obviously. So I ask again. We're not in a rush. We're not in a rush. We're going to do this on our time. We're not in a rush. We're in no rush to have Gervonta Davis face Vasily Lomachenko. ESPN Ringside 2019. Gervonta isn't rushing into fight with Vasily Lomachenko in 2020 because of course not. So that's 4 calendar years of it, of us asking. And then this dude gets on pound for pound list. This dude gets all the accolades. He gets emailed the belt. And I'm supposed to sit here and be overly critical of Vasily Lomachenko. I'm supposed to sit over here and say, well, you know what? That guy got caught with 25 body punches. They didn't hurt him. And it sure as hell looked like he was purposely not dropping his power hand so he could land a straight left, which is his favorite punch. But you know what? He got hit with 25 body shots. So you know what? I think Tank would destroy him. I think Tank, if Tank caught him with a power shot to the body, which we know Lomachenko is prone to, that his fist, it would actually go through Lomachenko's body. It would decapitate him. Like, it would split him in half because Tank has God power. And Tank is ranked higher than Lomachenko on pound for pound list, so therefore Tank would win the fight. And I'm still sitting here, once again in the Twilight Zone, wondering why in the hell Tank is ranked above Lomachenko on pound for pound lists. How is that happening? One guy is fighting top competition at lightweight, and one guy hasn't been. It's pretty simple. It's pretty simple math. But once again, eye test. It's the eye test. And the weird thing about it is some dudes will go after you for weighing dudes on the eye test. Pause. Some dudes will say, you can't say this stuff about Boots because it's just the eye test. He hasn't done anything yet. I got to be honest with you. As far as eye test, Boots holds up more than Tank to me. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. But it's just stuff that, as a boxing fan, it's as a boxing fan, man, it just feels disrespectful. I don't know how else to put it. You get tired of being disrespected as a boxing fan. Like we clearly see it. We see it, and I'm not going to ignore it. This has been going on for 8 years. 8 years. We've been treating this guy with kitty gloves over here. Been acting like this dude's a little toddler and we need to keep him in a safe space, and he's over there in the kiddie pool. Then you got dudes over here in the big pool doing big boy things. And they're being docked for things. And we're accusing them of things because they're in there with tougher competition, so they're going to look more flawed. And this dude's over here relaxing, laying up. And he's getting credit for things he's not doing. Ed Perez, $4.99 super chat. Great show. Appreciate you. Appreciate you, Ed Perez. So, I mean, as far as Lomachenko going forward, we got Navarrete. My guy Navarrete is back in action against Baranchyk, which is a tough fight. I'm just telling you right now, like, the odds are too wide for that fight. That's a tough fight. That's a tough fight. Those odds are way too, they're way too wide. So that fight could go either way. Obviously, I like Navarrete. I'm hoping he wins the fight, and I love Lomachenko versus Navarrete for later in the year. And my reasoning behind that, look, man, I like Shakur as a fighter. I think he's a great fighter. I think he's a pound-for-pound level fighter, but you got to entertain one, and you can't have these performances like he had against Nakathila and De Los Santos. You can't. You can't have it. You can't have it. I'd rather dudes go for it in losses than dudes looking like that in wins. I just can't watch that. I can't watch that stink fest. And July 6th, what I'm going to do is, since these cards come on so late, Top Rank's putting these cards on after midnight on the East Coast. What I'm going to do is I'm going to watch Shock Foster versus Conceição, because Conceição, the narrative on him is he's boring, and for the most part, that's been true. But the last couple fights, he's actually entertained me. He's actually done good things. So I'm going to reward him. I'm going to watch the fight. I like Shock Foster. I'm going to reward him. I'm going to watch the fight. He's been more exciting than people think. And I don't think you wait around, though. I think you move straight to it. If Navarrete wins this fight this weekend, or Baranchyk wins this fight, you could have an all-Ukrainian showdown. But you move straight to the unification that you know you can get. You don't wait around till July to see if Shakur, how he looks. And then if you can get him back from free agency while he's in free agency, negotiating with multiple things, I think you go straight to that unification. Give us Lomachenko versus hopefully Navarrete. And then you could also always do a unification after that, whoever wins that fight with Shakur. I just don't think Shakur is in position right now after that last performance to be holding things up. And I'm so tired of the gnashing of teeth. I'm so tired of these young American fighters. Look, people ask me this, and they'll say, how do you have Canelo top 5 pound for pound? How do you do it? How do you manage to get on podcasts and talk while Canelo's balls are simultaneously in your mouth? Here's how we have Canelo top 5 pound for pound. And I said this after the fight. Canelo does not lose to good fighters. Canelo does not put on flat performances against good fighters. The dude just doesn't have off nights. His losses are just special fighters. This is simple. So what happens is, and on top of that, he's outpacing much of his top peer pound for pound guys 2-1 as far as activity. He's doing his 65 fights in. For the love of God, can you get these fighters more active and stop making excuses for them? So here's how we do it. Canelo will lose to a great special fighter like Bivol, like Mayweather earlier in his career, right? So when he loses to Bivol and he's number 1 pound for pound, you don't drop him off the rankings. You drop him a couple spots, right? Because he lost to a special fighter. We keep him moving. And on top of that, what does he do? He announces 17 days after losing to Dimitri Bivol. He doesn't sulk for 13 months. He doesn't sulk for 17 months. He doesn't go to Bahamas or United Arab Emirates, wherever people go and, lay under a palm tree and then suffer from mental health for 13 months. It's not what he does. What does he do? 17 days later, he announces his big pay-per-view with Gennady Golovkin. That's what he does, and we keep it moving. So it's easy. So he doesn't lose to good fighters. He wins the fights you expect him to win, and he does it convincingly. And on top of that, he's more active than these other fighters. So it's easy to keep him in there because what happens? What happens is these young American fighters who may at the time, eye test once again, look more talented than Canelo right now. Teofimo, Ryan Garcia, Devin Haney, Shakur. What happens? They'll put on a performance like De Los Santos where they throw like 8 punches. They're like, get that the hell out of there. No, that's not a pound-for-pound fighter. Get that the hell out of here. Teofimo, great win. He'll look like crap. Great win, look like crap. It's too up and down. So you say, I don't know if this guy's a pound-for-pound fighter. He looked terrible in that last fight. Ryan Garcia, he'll win, but he needed 3 extra pounds to do it. God only knows what he was on or not on. I don't know. None of these fighters can keep momentum. The only young American fighter keeping momentum is Bam Rodriguez. So you say he stays above those guys because he's winning fights that some of these guys are looking very flawed against. He's winning some of these same level of fights that these other guys are fighting that level of fights or maybe even lower and looking very flawed. So why wouldn't I keep him higher? And on top of that, when he's staying twice as active as some of these pound-for-pound, top 5 pound-for-pound fighters, like, why would I not keep him in a conversation with Artur Beterbiev, who, when the wind blows too hard, he'll have an injury? If fighters are fighting once per year, back in the day, we'd have called them semi-retired. Mayweather's retirement. Remember when Mayweather retired? His retirement period was more active than some of these fighters. Yet they're staying on lists. So I'm not going to feel bad at all for keeping Canelo on the pound-for-pound list. It's, once again, your expectations of these young American fighters are too low. And they're going to live up or down to them. And they're living down to your expectations of them. So when I say you need to raise your expectations, I don't have any intentions behind that other than I want us to get better in American boxing. But I'm giving up hope on that. I'm giving up hope because my expectations now are getting lower. I'm not expecting American fighters to do special things anymore just because of the environment and y'all's expectations of them. And since y'all's expectations are so low, my expectations of American boxing fans are now low. So that's when I just take the ring IQ approach to it and say, I'm just not going to have conversations with a lot of these people. I'm not impressed. Canelo's pay-per-view buys, real quick. When I saw this reporting by Jedi Goodman, who is a reliable source to a lot of people, 520,000 pay-per-view buys for Canelo. When Canelo versus Munguia was signed, I expected that to be a $1 million pay-per-view fight. I'm be honest. That's just my expectations of it. I expected it to do way better if this 520 is real. If this 520 is real, then my expectations were way higher than that. Way, 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 way higher than that. But the first place my mind went was they had to have been lying, the PBC, about those Jermell pay-per-view buys, if that's the case. There's no way. There's no way you're going to sit here and tell me that Canelo versus Munguia did 130,000 less buys than Canelo versus Mel. There's just no way. There's no way. That makes 0 sense at all. 0 cents at all. There's just no way. And you could throw out all kind of undisputed versus no. So I have to call into question how reliable these numbers we've been getting, particularly from the PBC for years, have been. I've been told for years, and I didn't believe people, that the live gates that the PBC in particular are giving out are fake. They're fake numbers, even the live gates. And you'll have people out there saying they can't fake live gate numbers. They can. They can manipulate those numbers, just like the government can manipulate the GDP, the unemployment rate, all these numbers, inflation percentage. They can also manipulate. There's ways, and I'm told that they can manipulate live gates, and I'm told they're doing that. So there's no way. There's just no way at all that Canelo versus Mel did more pay-per-view buys than Canelo versus Munguia. There's no way. There's no way. I'm calling BS on that. There's no way. There's no way. Ain't happening. Didn't happen. No way. So that's where my mind went first. And then secondly, it went, if that number is true, then we're to that point where Mayweather was at a point circa 2011, 2012, where the overhead started to get too high for what the revenue was spitting out. And investors, I'm sure, were going to start to put pressure at that point on Mayweather. And that's when you got Mayweather versus Canelo, which, if you ask people, happened at the right time for Mayweather for many reasons, not only competitively, but economically. And then Mayweather versus Pacquiao had to happen at that time, because once again, you had to generate the revenue, and no other fighter would have done that. No other opponent would have done that. And then Canelo versus McGregor just came out of left field, right? And that was a bonanza as well. But those fights needed to happen, because otherwise, if Mayweather would have stayed on the trajectory of fighting the Maidanas, the Guerreros, fights that were not in demand. And dudes will lie to you about that now and act like these fights were in demand. They were not in demand. They were not in demand. That wouldn't have even been the top 5 of fights we wanted Mayweather to fight at that point. But Mayweather was fighting those fights because he's going to fight whoever he wants to, because he's the A side and he's going to get the money. But at a certain point, that doesn't work anymore. And what I'm telling you is, I think we're at that point with Canelo to where, if this number is true, 520, and dudes will tell you that's not going to cover the overhead of that. And we thought at the time Canelo versus Munguia is going to give PBC a margin to work off of to make more fights. And what do we see instead? We see this hold in June that PBC TGP had on that place in Minnesota that they comped to death. In June, it disappears. And these 5 or 6 dates that come with the subscription, not pay-per-views, for later on in the year that the PBC said they had lined up, disappeared. They don't exist. All you dudes out there who are expecting the PBC to start to give you this big schedule for the second half of the year, third quarter, fourth quarter, you're going to be waiting for that forever. I got news for you. It's not coming. All these dudes will tell you there's a budget. Where is it? Where is it? And I thought, once again, Canelo Munguia was going to do $1 million buys, and there was going to be a big margin to work off of. Apparently not. And a lot of that has to do with there are multiple things. There are multiple things. I think the market is telling Canelo, look, we like the Munguia fight, but there are other fights we'd rather see you fight, and we're going to wait till those to buy your fight. I think that's part of it. That's number one. Number two is there's pay-per-view fatigue, fellas. As I mentioned earlier, the government's lying to you about all kind of numbers. Dudes are out here hurting. They're working multiple jobs to make ends meet. Everything's more expensive. So what they're going to do is they're going to sit back and say, look, either I can buy this device to watch these fights for free and I'm not going to contribute, or I'm going to sit them out. I'm going to be very selective about what fights that I buy, what fights that I purchase. And by the way, Ryan Garcia's pay-per-view numbers have not been released officially. We don't know what that fight did. Dudes are out here saying 500,000, a million. We don't know what that fight did. That fight could have done 200,000 pay-per-view buys. We don't know. And really, we'll never know what these fights are doing, pay-per-view buys, because I think they're lying about all of them. But it's market fatigue. The market is telling you we can't do this. You're having pay-per-views every other weekend. You have Ryan Garcia pay-per-view. You got Canelo pay-per-view. You got Tyson Fury pay-per-view. You're going to have the Deontay Wilder pay-per-view. And now you're going to have the Tank Davis Benavidez pay-per-view. That's every other weekend. And that's what I was warning you of a couple of months ago when this thing was lining up, is you're going to get good fights, but it's going to come at a price. It's going to come at a price. You're going to get entertainment, but it's going to come at a price. You're now in a country club sport. Boxing is always headed in the opposite direction of the way the world is going. Let's make things cheaper, make them more accessible, make your athletes more accessible. We're making our athletes less accessible. We're making them more expensive to get access to. We're making this more expensive. We're making this too complex. Instead of fixing things that are fixable, like mismatches, that are much more of a detriment to fighters and fighter safety than drug abuse, we're going to focus all these resources and waste all this money on positive tests that we don't know if they're positively positive. We start to hear about qualitative versus quantitative, and then it starts to get too complex, and then the dude's going to get off with a slap on the wrist or just get off altogether. Pause. And we're focusing all those resources on that for fighter safety instead of focusing our resources on something that's easy to fix and would be better. If we want to make a real dent on fighter safety, let's address the mismatches. And once again, I've given you that data. Showtime, on average, 8.5 to 1 odds per fight card last year. The Zone, 9 to 1. I think Top Rank was around 10 to 1. Those are too wide, fellas. That's too wide of an average. Way too wide. So you can disparage the UFC all you want and what they're doing. One thing that they've got right is when it comes to fighter safety, they're on it. Yeah, but they're not doing VADA, and they're not doing, you know what they're doing? I sat down with my brother and watched multiple cards. I was sitting there watching the Mexico card with him. 12 fights, prelims and fights. And I'm doing the math in my head, and they're showing them on the screen. 2 to 1, 1.5 to 1, minus 150 favorite, minus 170 favorite. Every fight. The widest odds are 2 to 1, 2.5 to 1. Maybe every once in a while you get a 3 to 1 odds. That's fighter safety. Even odds. A fighter gets hit, he goes to sleep. One punch. Not taking continuous punishment with the bigger gloves. That's fighter safety. But we're going to focus VADA, drug testing, all while we're ignoring things that are a real detriment to fighter safety. Fighters coming up. Fighters draining themselves all the way down to 135 and rehydrating to 165 on fight night. Fighters dehydrating all the way down to 168 at the weigh-in, 40 hours now before the actual fight. And then rehydrating all the way up to 205 pounds and looking like heavyweights on fight night, fighting super middleweights. But instead, drug testing. I don't know what to tell you. But as far as Canelo pay-per-view buys, the silver lining would be this may force those bigger fights now if there was balking on both sides as to whether they want to fight those fights. The market will show you. The market will say it's not a good economy. We have to be selective about what we do right now. You're having too many pay-per-views. There's pay-per-view fatigue. And if you want us to buy these fights for $89 plus tax, you got to give me the fight. You got to give me the fight. And it's what I said as far as September. If Berlanga's in the equation, the price of that brick has to come down significantly. You can't have that overhead, and you can't put that overhead off on the market. And that's another thing people are missing is the market knows that you're putting that overhead onto them. They know that. We know that now. There used to be a pay-per-view quality fight. And now you'll have power brokers openly talking down to fans on Twitter now, on YouTube now, and say, that doesn't exist. Do you want to see your favorite fighter fight or not? Yeah, I'd like to. Well, you know what? It's got to be on pay-per-view then. You got to pay for it. You got to pay extra for it. Well, who did that? Who created that market? It doesn't matter. That's where we are. You got to deal with it. All right, well, I won't then. I'll leave. And that's what a lot of people did. And that's why you have this number they throw out, 150,000 to 200,000 American boxing fans left, hardcore boxing fans left in America because of that. Not only are you giving us less, you're being more condescending. So they've left. And I know this because I see it happening in real time. I've told you about when we worked at Hailstorm Sports, when we worked at Calix Sports, when we worked at Calix Boxing, circa 2010 to 2014. There were 8 or 9 guys we worked with. We were all a unit, and 2 of us left while watching this sport, me and D-Style. The other 6, 7 have left. They don't even follow it anymore. Hardcore boxing fans. You see it in real time. People don't like to hear it. They don't like to hear that. But as far as the Canelo pay-per-view buys, I know people want me to put a pretty spin on it, but if it's 520, that's not good. It's good compared to other fighters. But once again, when you take into consideration the overhead, you got to do more than that for Canelo versus Munguia. And the other part of that is it was piss poor, absolutely atrocious promotion for that fight. It was... Once again, it's being condescending and taking the market for granted. And this is what happens when you take your market for granted. It's what happens when you take people for granted. Is you say, we got 2 Mexican fighters, so that's going to sell itself. So you know what we're going to do? We're going to have a press conference. We're not even going to put it on Amazon Prime. And put it on our YouTube page. And we're going to have them come out around this ugly podium against this ugly backdrop. And we're going to have them talk a little trash. And then we're going to walk them outside and they're going to hit some piñatas. And voila, we're going to do 1 million pay-per-view buys. It's like, no. That's bad. And no, we're not going to hit piñatas. I would have told the dude that. Like, I'm not hitting a piñata. If I was Canelo and Munguia, you know how disrespected I would have felt about that? You want me to go outside and hit a piñata? Like I'm at a 12-year-old birthday party, a piñata. No, I'm not going to do it. I'm sitting here like everybody else watching these dudes, grown men hitting piñatas. And then they shelf it. They shelf the promotion. Nothing on Amazon. And then 2 weeks out, they'll do some what's called shoulder content and put 20-minute segments on Amazon finally. But it's too late. That's not enough. And Oscar will come out off the top rope. And thankfully, because if not, maybe it would have been worse pay-per-view buys and add some intrigue. But if 520 is true, fellas, it's not going to work. And now we've transitioned into a different point to where the investors are going to say it's going to force those big fights now. And I think Turkey Al-Sheikh's going to have to get involved, and I think he will. And we'll see what happens with that. And I think that's where we're at. Let me show you this real quick. And I appreciate everybody for coming through. And y'all make sure to hit that like button one last time. Let me show you this. Present. Share screen. Let's see. Let me do this. Let me do this. Okay. Let me see. All right. Let's see. Share screen. Share. Let's do this. This is our favorite father. And look, boxing could make a lot of money if it did, like Housewives of Atlanta, if it did like dads of boxing. Somebody needs to do that. I'm telling you, like somebody who has the time needs to do that. Dads of boxing, and just put them all in a room. Put them all in a house. Like send them all to Bahamas and just for like a month. Send him, like send Angel Garcia, send Bill Haney, send Henry Garcia. Just send them all to an island for a month and just follow them a camera. You don't even have to tell them anything. Just send them there. And they all stay in one house and just see what happens. Just follow them with cameras. I'm telling you. Somebody needs to do that. But this is John Fury today. Fury! 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 Fury!
Ребят, все нормально, порешаем. Да, порешаем.
And that's one angle of it. There are other angles of John Fury, and he's headbutting somebody in Usyk's camp. And I want you to notice that the whole situation, it's just dudes, it's just grown men yelling Fury, Usyk, like you're at a game, right? And it just becomes diffused, and it's done. It's done. It's done. There's no need to go any further. It's done. Like we're done. We're done here. You yelled Usyk, we yelled Fury. We had a good time. We all got it on film. Like y'all got it. All your channels. Your channel got it. Your channel got it. Your channel got it. You got some good footage. Okay, it's good promotion. But then this dude just keeps going, and he sees a smaller guy from Usyk's camp, and all of a sudden, yeah, I'm a headbutt him. And I want you to notice that the dude took it. The dude took it well. And he's like, he just kept going. The dude's fine. The dude's much smaller than John Fury, and he took the headbutt well, and he took it. He took it. He just stood there. And this is John Fury. So he is. And that's why I said we need a Dads of Boxing reality show, because that's who he is. And he ends up being the one bleeding. And the dude's fine. But this is the polarizing part of the Furies. And it goes to, once again, expectations of fighters. There was a point in time where I was a fan of Fury. There was a point in time when I thought this was going to get to some big destination. And the good news for Fury is it could still somewhat get, like, this is a historic thing that's happening Saturday. It's the first undisputed champion since Lennox Lewis. What's that been? How many years that's been? 23, something like that. However many years that's been. So it's historic. And if Fury gets by this, I compare his career to Andre Ward. It's like when Fury was on that first, like after the Klitschko fight, just like Andre Ward after the Super 6, I'm like, this is going somewhere. This guy could get to some all-time great conversations, stuff like that, right? And then it goes sideways. And then there's too much baggage involved. And then the expectations, these fighters don't want you to attach expectations to them. And they think they're above the expectations, and then your expectations now naturally lower. And once again, it's that word, expectations. There are still people out there who are doing this thing where they say Tyson Fury has the longest undisputed reign at heavyweight, whatever they're saying, 8 years and 5 months. And you're like, no, he doesn't. He doesn't. He hasn't been, not undisputed, he hasn't been lineal that long. He has not had the longest lineal run. The lineage is broke. The dude retired multiple times. How do you keep that when you're retired? How? How do you keep lineal when you're retired? You come off the rankings when you're retired. You're no longer lineal. And dudes will still tell you with the straight face, this dude has been lineal for almost a decade. So that's the tough part about Fury is there's a lot of baggage that comes along, and that seems to be the trend in boxing. And it's why when we get excited when a great fighter does something or looks great in the ring, even if it's against good opposition, we get excited, right? Even when, like, I mean, I'm not going to apologize for getting excited about Inoue's run, Canelo's run. Certain fighters have not lived up to their expectations of them, no matter what they do. But the good news for Fury here is he can erase a lot of that if he wins on Saturday. Whether you dislike him, whether you like him, he's another polarizing guy because of stuff like what we just saw. And some people will say men being men, but once again, I don't think that they apply that to other fighters in their camp. Fury can erase a lot of that and add to his legacy on Saturday. And it's a complete toss-up if you look at the betting odds. It's a toss-up. And still, I'm going to wrestle with this on fight week. I don't know who I'm picking. I don't. I was joking with some people last week and saying I'm picking Fury after I was saying I was picking Usyk. I don't know. I don't know where I'm going with this. I don't. There's a lot on the line. If Usyk becomes two-time undisputed at cruiserweight and heavyweight, then he's going to have a claim to pound-for-pound king. And once again, that's going to be something to wrestle with. Everybody's going to be wrestling with. What do you do? In a way, Bud, Usyk. You'll have three people at that point who have a claim. But on top of that, those achievements right there put him in rarefied air, Usyk. If you're giving up that much weight, if you do what you did at cruiserweight and then you come up and do it again at heavyweight twice and then do it against a big fighter of Tyson Fury, that's something. For Fury, what's on the line here is he knows a lot of this stuff around him as far as being lineal for almost a decade. Since he's so big, since he's bigger of heavyweights of previous eras, that automatically he would have beat all these fighters and automatically he's an all-time great heavyweight. He knows this stuff is flimsy, particularly after the Ngannou fight. And the Ngannou stinker puts even more pressure on him because you can't have that performance and then come out and lose to Usyk. So a lot's on the line here. And I think more pressure is on Fury. Because in a lot of ways, Usyk, his legacy is cemented. But I think Fury's is very much still in the air. I think it's very much still in the air. And if he loses this fight, there's going to be a lot of backlash. There's going to be a lot of people pointing a finger and saying, ha, 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 told you. That's what he's got to deal with. But if he wins, much like the Andre Ward comparison, and this is how dicey it is, fellas. And that's why we talk about how decisions and results matter. Lomachenko gets that win against Haney. He's undisputed right now, and his legacy is different. Golovkin gets that first decision against Canelo. His legacy is different, but they don't. And we got to deal with reality. We all saw that first Kovalev fight. We all saw Andre Ward lose that fight. But the reality of the situation is Andre Ward goes down undefeated, and his legacy is nobody was able to beat him, and he's arguably the greatest super middleweight of all time. Even after this lull, even after suing his dead promoter, right? And after that saying, while he's posturing as if he's sending Golovkin offers, which we know didn't happen, and we've been over that, sent it after the Madison Square Garden was sold out for the Lemieux fight pay-per-view. He sends an email acting like they're sending Golovkin an offer. And then on top of that, he already saying, I'm moving up to 175 and I'm fighting 3 tune-ups. He's saying it. I'm moving up to light heavyweight and I'm fighting 3 tune-ups before you even mention Kovalev. That happened. But even after that lull, and even after he gets a gift decision, Kovalev is robbed in that first fight, and Andre Ward gets a gift decision. The second fight with Kovalev cements his legacy as undefeated, and it erases a lot of that period right there. And in that way, Andre Ward and Tyson Fury, their career arcs are a lot the same. They're similar in that way. We saw Tyson Fury has given the boxing fan a lot of headaches. A lot of headaches. He's had some flat performances. Long layoffs. Multiple retirements. One day he says, I'm hiring a new trainer. He announces it publicly. The next day he retires. He's saying, you could take that belt. I'm keeping this belt. All this stuff, right? He'll hold the division hostage at times. But if he wins this fight against Usyk and becomes the first undisputed heavyweight champion, and he'll be lineal at that point. If he does that, it erases a lot of that stuff. And that's what a lot of Fury haters aren't going to want to hear. But it's the truth. It's going to erase a lot of that ugliness. And in that way, there's a lot on the line for Fury. I think for Usyk, it's a little bit easier. He's the one taking on more weight. He's the one moving up to heavyweight from cruiserweight. He's already become undisputed at cruiserweight. And he's been a more consistent fighter throughout his career. Pound for pound, we would all say he's a better fighter. But undisputed is on the line on Saturday. Lineal's on the line. Everything is on the line on Saturday. And if Fury wins that fight, it erases a lot of that ugliness. So throughout this week, I'll wrestle with this prediction. I don't know what I'm going to do with it. I don't know what I'm going to bet. I'm going to wrestle back and forth with it. I'll talk to other content creators about this to see what they're doing with it. And I'll come to a conclusion as to what I think my prediction will be. And then we'll watch the fight. I'm worried that it could be a stinker of a fight. I am very much worried about that. But Usyk could also speed it up. On that note, I'll see y'all again Wednesday with D-Style Boxing on ACP. And I'll also see y'all on the roundtable tonight on D-Style's channel. God bless. Peace.